You've actually used your characters to almost hold a mirror to society, to challenge, to question. Like, I look at the description that you've had of the very deep divide in America right now between America and America.
I love America. I love the promise of America. I think America is the light on the hill. America, on the other hand, has a lot of issues, America is where division comes, is where hatred comes, is where we're separated, is where we don't come together, is where people get in bubbles, it's where they divide and all those things. But America is the thing that we should always be shooting for.
Welcome to My Legacy. Today we are truly privileged to welcome a creative visionary whose work has not only given us so much joy, but has also challenged perspectives, reshaped the landscape of television, and given a platform to voices that have too long been overlooked. Larry Wilmore is an Emmy-winning writer, producer, actor, comedian, and host, whose brilliant work has shaped some of the most beloved and groundbreaking shows on television, from The Bernie Mac Show to Insecure to Grownish. Now, what makes our podcast so unique and unexpected is we don't just meet extraordinary individuals, we meet the people who know them best. And Larry has brought along his amazingly talented daughter, Lauren. And so, Larry, we're thrilled you are with us here today. And could you kick us off by giving us the honor of introducing to us Lauren?
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. When I first saw this invitation, I'm like, wait, I get to do a podcast with my daughter? Are you kidding me? So I want everyone to meet my wonderful daughter, Lauren Hi'ilani Wilmore. She is such a great person inside and out. And it's such a joy to have her join us on this show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And let's just say she has the best hair that I have seen.
Oh, thank you.
You look marvelous, darling.
She's got hair stories. She's got a lot of hair stories.
But I love rocking the fro. It's been a long journey to get here, but now I am happily rocking the fro every day.
Wait, on behalf of the guys, we're not going to shout out to Larry. He looks great.
Well,
Thank you. You know how long it takes to get it like this, you guys? You know how long?
Now, Larry, our origin story is so important to all of us, and who raised us has a phenomenal impact, good, bad, or indifferent. Now, you grew up the middle child of 6 kids in California, but your family has roots in the Midwest.
Yes.
And so I'm really curious, and I'm sure our listeners are, is who would you consider the most influential person of your childhood?
Of course, my parents, very influential in different ways. My parents got divorced when I was young, but I was able to get different things from both parents sometimes in different ways. My mom went through a lot. She really dealt with a lot of emotional issues, but there was a strength about her and a resilience about her that I really admired, even going through it. And my dad was a person who, it seemed like he just kept his own ideas about himself when he was out in the world, like the world didn't affect him. And he was a civil servant. He was a probation officer at a time, and it wasn't easy for Black people, working those kinds of jobs. But he always had a sense of humor about it. And I always admired the way he treated people. I also grew up at a time when your neighborhood kind of raised you. Our next door neighbors were very important to raising us. We called them BB and Uncle Henry were their names. They were an older couple from Texas, had all that homespun, old school, knowledge and everything. She made peach jam and canned it. It was that type of growing up. And we all had fruit trees in our backyards. But the last part of it was was so lucky I had influential teachers who, at certain points in my life, were just there at the right time. And there was a thread through some of my most important teachers. They always appreciated individuality, uniqueness. It's okay to be different, And one of the biggest ones of that, I'll say briefly, was my 7th grade teacher. He and his wife were from Peru. I went to Catholic school. They were the lay teachers there. And he saw that I was making jokes and stuff during school, me and my friends. And he came to me once and he said, okay, Larry, here's the thing. I'm going to make a deal with you. After lunch, there's 15 minutes when I'm trying to get everybody's attention and all that stuff. You can have that as joke time, okay? And you could get up and do whatever you want in front of the class. And I was like, okay, that sounds fantastic. He says, but in return, I don't want to hear a peep out of you for the rest of the day. And I'm like, done. That's a fantastic deal. Are you kidding me? And he was so influential. In fact, I remember he gave us a math question that he said, nobody can figure this out. If you do, I'll cook you a steak dinner. Of course, my brain wouldn't stop. I figured it out. And sure enough, he and his wife invited me into their home, cooked me a steak dinner. I'll never forget that teacher. He was so influential in how he dealt with students and inspired us. He used to play the guitar every day in class. It was just great. Mr. and Mrs. Ribello. Yeah, they were awesome. Just the best teachers ever. So teachers, family, and neighbors.
And neighbors, that community.
I love the shout out. Maybe someone on social might want to shout out to their favorite teacher and do a little love and put it out there in the universe, inspired by Larry.
Absolutely. And now, Lauren, how did you see the values your dad grew up with influence the way that he parented you and your brother?
It's so interesting when he was saying teachers and family. I was like, that is such a theme in my life. So many people, first of all, many people in my family are teachers on both sides. And I'm an actor, but my day job is teaching Mandarin to kids. And I also have so many teachers that have influenced me. Yeah, the sidebar. We can come back to that.
Am I the only one going to say that out loud? Did I miss something there?
And a quick dad flex. She also teaches French. That's just a quick dad flex.
Occasionally. Okay. But I have so many teachers that have influenced me as well. And part of what inspired me to become a teacher was knowing how much your life can change from one good teacher who sees you and values you and helps nudge you along your path. Then also the importance of family, especially since 2020. Like we've all just been really clinging on to our family the past 5 years, and we've lost a lot of family members, but it has really brought all of us closer, and we've just really been finding as many ways as possible to just like support each other and all of that throughout this time. So yeah, those two, you happen to mention those two values, and I think those are big themes in my life.
The apple didn't fall far from the tree.
So Lauren, your dad's known for certainly sharp humor and ability to challenge perspectives through comedy. He certainly is a big deal in Hollywood. But what's something you and your brother maybe tease him about that reminds you that he's just Dad?
It's so funny because I was thinking about this and I was like, what don't we tease him about? But also, what doesn't he tease us about? It's a lot of mutual teasing in our household. There's just always this back and forth of silliness and goofiness. And I think one thing that, and feel free if you think of anything, Dad, but a lot of times if he does a joke that I feel like goes a little too far, I'll give him 2 thumbs down. And he's always like, whoa, oh no, 2 thumbs down. And he'll probably use it anyway, but that's a fun little thing that I do. But I don't know, can you think of anything, Dad?
No, I was going to mention that. Lauren is great because I can see how far I'm being provocative. Like the thumbs up or thumbs downs. When I get 2 thumbs down, I'm like, oh, I'm touching a nerve here. Oh, what's going on?
Well, I think all children have that. I know our daughter certainly keeps us on edge and keeps us honest with her opinion, even when we don't ask at all. And even with all of the humor, one of the things that I think is interesting that, well, first of all, comedians tend to live longer. Which, you did not know that? Yeah. So I think
I think Lauren told me that when she was younger. She said, Dad, people that laugh live longer.
Exactly.
So you're a lifesaver.
Yes.
Because you make people
That's
laugh.
what my brother and I would say, that we're like, our dad saves lives for a living because he makes people laugh, and that makes you live longer.
And it's so healing, to have that laughter and humor. Sure. And I do know, though, that sometimes on the other side of that with comedians, there's also this deep sense of kind of carrying all of that as well. Do you find that? And what do you go to, if you do, to for your own solace?
Yeah, who knows the reasons why you want to make people laugh. I remember working with the great Bernie Mac, and he told me the story of his mom, and she passed away when he was a teenager, and the way that she was very sick, and he so wanted to make her laugh. It meant so much to him. and the desire and the intensity and the passion that he had to do that carried into his professional life. But that's where it started, And for me and my brother, we spent a lot of our childhood hearing our parents fight, and, they were on their way to divorce, and we would spend our time going to sleep, making each other laugh, and we used to call it Make Me Laugh, of who could do the funniest thing. But that was in the background of, that was our background noise for that, and it was always for us. It wasn't conscious. It was just our way, I guess, even as children, of just coping with that. But the joy, we had a certain joy in it. It wasn't covering up anything. There was a real joy in it, and I still have it to this day. I really enjoy making people laugh. It's just something that has been there from the beginning. People would always ask me, say, Larry, how did you get into comedy? And I said, I'll be honest with you, I'm in showbiz to get comedy out of me, 'Cause, I mean, if I worked in a bank, I'd still be making people laugh. I just wouldn't last very long, So, but that's why. That's my connection to that. It's my relationship to the world,
And we're so grateful.
Larry, you've certainly had many ups and downs in your career.
Yes. For sure.
Often the most important lessons that we learn come from our challenging times. Mm-hmm. Can you share what has been your most challenging experience and what has been emerged from that experience?
Yeah, I've had many of them. Many times people think your career is just this line that goes like that, but it really isn't. Some of my biggest ones was I was fired from the Bernie Mac show after I won every award you could possibly win, and I was in a fight with the network the whole time. And it was just one of my lowest points, and I was my personal life wasn't going too well at the time too. My wife and I were trying to figure out what was going on, and I just felt so isolated and just really, really down. But I just relied on just doing the basics, We spent a lot of time at that point, Lauren doesn't know about a lot of these things, but we just worked on our marriage for a long time, and doing the work of that just really helped, it gets you out of the thinking about bad things, and remembering why I like the business and going forward. Getting fired from the Bernie Mac show actually opened the door to me working on The Office, to me being on The Daily Show, to me expanding the things that I wanted to do all along. But, I was going down that road, and it was very instrumental for me to feel so low emotionally, but to know that I had love around me, I had support. Guys, it was amazing, the outpouring of love, of support, just from showbiz, from luminaries, people like James L. Brooks. I remember Stephen Bochco reached out to me, people I didn't even know, saying, it's okay, Larry, we're with you, hang in there, you're great, the work you're doing is great, let alone from friends. But the most important thing was family. And even when my wife and I split, when we were talking to the kids, we both understood how lucky we were to have a family that had love first, and even though you could be going through difficult times, making difficult decisions, if you start there, you'll be okay in the end, That's always been my lifeboat, is family. Family's always the lifeboat, and all the other stuff is around that.
And love first.
I love that. Family is the lifeboat. Larry just gave a beautiful tribute to the role that you and family played in his life. Was there a time that you were going through a unique challenge and your dad's advice, wisdom, or maybe even just comedic laughter helped get you through it?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, just the past 5 years since COVID have definitely been the hardest 5 years. And for so many reasons. And Dad he's always said, first of all, I'm proud of you every day of your life. That has always been something that he said to both Jon and I. And that I always knew he was cheering me on. And then when I moved back to New York and started really for real pursuing acting, it's rough out here, but I can always talk to him about it, and he's always just giving me little bits of advice and, sharing his stories. And I was listening to some of the episodes, and I think on the David Oyelowo episode, he mentioned you have to see it to be it.
Yes.
And that's what I saw in both of my parents, that I knew from a young age that if I wanted to do show business, it would be hard, but that it would be possible because I saw that they did it and that they had to work their butts off, but that they made it happen. And so, yeah, I think one of the most helpful things has just been his cheerleading and his support this whole time. Like, whatever you need, I got you. Like, that's always been his energy for both me and for my brother as well.
Well, that was very sweet for your dad. And I want to say we should invite Lauren back because she listened to the previous episodes and did a nice shout out to David Oyelowo. I like her. We're inviting her back.
There you go. Anytime.
Yes.
I am a student first.
Yes.
I am a student before
That's
everything.
So true.
Well done, Lauren.
So true.
Thank you for prepping so well. And Larry, did you listen to the previous episodes by chance?
I'm the teacher, not the student.
I'm like making notes.
I know there has not been one conversation that we've had that I haven't been inspired by, and I hope that that you got that same gift as well.
Yes, for sure.
Now, Larry, I know that it's hard to select just one project that you would be most proud of outside of your beautiful children, but is there one that you felt particularly was significant because of how many obstacles or setbacks that you had to overcome to make it happen?
Yeah, I probably go back to the Bernie Mac show, to quote from Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, So it took me, I'll tell this story real quick. I was in an office where I had like an overall deal at Disney that had expired, but I was still going to the office, just waving at the guard, getting on the laugh, and just kind of hiding out. Guys, I'm not exaggerating. For 4.5 weeks, I never turned in anything or something. I wrote the same 3 pages every day. I could not get past page 3. This is 4.5 weeks. I'm gonna get found out. They're gonna realize I'm a fraud. I'm scared every day. Now I'm hiding in my office all the time. I just couldn't get it. Some days I didn't write anything, banging my head against the wall. And then one day I looked up and it was on page 4, and I was like, oh, and something had clicked, and it just poured out of me. The entire show in 36 hours. I couldn't stop writing. Wow. It was during the counting of the votes down in Florida with, you remember Bush in that election. I was watching that as I'm typing, and that script ended up winning an Emmy, a year and a half later. And almost intact from that moment. And I just had clarity in that moment. It took so hard to get it, but it just took trust. I was so proud of myself for doing that and just sticking in there, because there could have been many moments. I mean, when you're feeling really low, especially as a creative person and you feel all alone, and everyone's going to judge something you're doing is terrible. I mean, you're going through all the worst things that every writer has. You feel that way anyway. It doesn't matter what the project is. Finally, everybody's going to find out that the piece of crap that I already know that I am, But when I broke through, I was so proud of the fact that I stuck in there, and it became like a template for other writers and that sort of thing, and so I was very proud of that moment.
Well, first of all, congratulations, Larry. That's a phenomenal story.
Thank you.
And just an amazing moment of inspiration. Lauren, I'm going to turn it back over to you. We love your energy. You have captured us here on this conversation, and you can see why you've been so successful in theater, including your roles with classical Shakespeare to musical theater and so much in between. And I can't believe you teach Mandarin.
那我不知道该说什么，但是现在如果你说中文，你可以告诉我说不说，我说好不好？
What did you say in Mandarin just before you tell us?
Oh, I was just like, hey, if anyone out there speaks Mandarin, let me know if you think I speak well or not. And I don't know what I should say.
Now, I'll have to brag on Lauren real quick.
Yes.
Lauren was in
Lord.
love with the movie Frozen. It really hit her at a time in her life where
Yeah, to be fair, I was 15.
That's okay. Nothing to apologize for. But she took that song and she let it go, translated into 20 different languages.
Well, okay, so I didn't translate it, but I gathered all the because Disney movies get translated into a million languages, and I made a version where each line was a different language, and then I learned it, and that was my party trick.
Oh my gosh! Okay, can you give us one? Give us a line or two. I've got two girls who are just Frozen, adore Frozen. So they're big Anna fans. So can you this is for my daughters.
Yeah, 다이죠 하늘바람 갔을 때야 libre soy That was Korean and then Spanish. Forgive the Korean. I do not speak Korean.
Fantastic.
But
Korean
allegedly that
into
was Korean and Spanish.
Okay, I kind of feel like Lauren's stealing the show, so I feel like we got to give Larry
Let
a
her
question.
steal it.
Yes, Larry, you have played so many iconic roles. Now, obviously, among the most iconic is the very sarcastic, hilarious, the senior black correspondent. Yes,
Senior black correspondent.
Senior black
Yes.
correspondent, of course,
Thank you very
from The Daily Show. Can you bring us some of your favorite memories from those shows?
Oh man, so many. Just working with all those talented people, I was just so lucky to be there. I mean, I started right after John Oliver had started, right when Rob Riggle and Asif Mambi, we all kind of started at the same time. My audition was funny. It wasn't quite an audition, but I met with John and we had talked about doing something because that's when I was looking to start kind of performing again. I was in that transition point, and we thought it would be something fun. We weren't quite sure. They thought, well, maybe you're like a black Republican. I was like, no, I don't want to just be anti-something. And then someone said senior black correspondent, and that just sounded really funny. And so what they said is, we'll write two things, and we'll just do them. We'll tape one, and we'll do the other one in the show. And so we wrote them. And when you're trying to find it, you're not sure what you are or what that type of thing. You tend to overwrite it. And I remember during rehearsal, the rehearsal went horrible. I mean, as a comedian, especially as a performer, it was just too overwritten and nobody's laughing. And it's that point where the crew isn't kind of looking at you because they think, it's like how you don't name certain farm animals because they might be food one day. So you don't want to get too close to them, so making sure they're not going to get too close to me. This guy, he may not stick around. And you can just feel that you're not connecting. And so I was kind of down. And then I found out, before air that they were going to cut one of the pieces we were playing. I'm like, well, I'm not going to be on this show. And then they decided to do one piece. And right before air, John goes through this rewrite. And he brought me and he said, hey man, let's just go through this. And he said, let's just talk it through. And I really just put it in my voice. And I'm working off of John and we're doing it like that. And we really got it tight. And right before we went on, I was sitting there and he said, hey man, and I was a little nervous. He said, just look in the camera and just effing give it to America. That's what he told me. And I was like, okay, And so the first joke, huge laugh. And as now my comedian instincts are taking over, like, okay, I got you guys now. And it's like, bam, bam, bam. And now the crew is likes a brother now, They're like, the crew is like, where did this guy come? When did he sneak in the door, And I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget John's generosity, knowing that I needed a little boost at that time and just saying, hey man, don't worry about this. Just, what you're doing, And it was so nice,
So, Lauren, you've watched your dad navigate Hollywood and said he taught you a lot about resilience. What is one of the most important pieces of advice that he's given you in terms of navigating through?
I think this just for life, not even just for, being in show business, but he always said to John and I, you don't have to be the best, you have to be your best. And that stuck with me because I am a recovering perfectionist. And, just knowing that it wasn't, and that kind of takes off the energy of competition as well, of having to beat other people out for something. But just focusing on living up to your potential and shining your light as opposed to trying to dim someone else's so that you can get to the top. I mean, that applies to just everything ever in life, but certainly in show business. And I've really come to understand that more the past couple years that I've been here in New York, and finding my community here and my friends, and we're all just constantly lifting each other up because that's the only way to, that's the only way to live. You can't be always trying to push other people down.
Let me ask this as an addition. As a father of a 16-year-old daughter, we hope that we get it right most of the times, but there are those times. Is there a piece of advice that you think was not so good that your dad gave you?
I'm sure there was, but I probably was just like, okay, throw that out and pressed on with my life, I'm sure there have been, but I genuinely, nothing really comes to mind because I think I just kind of hold on to the gold nuggets.
And you let it go.
That's
Yeah, and I didn't go.
What language are we in there?
That's Norwegian.
Okay. It slipped in a little Norwegian.
There you go.
But also, I will say, I mean, talking about being a nerd, that is another legacy thing from my dad, you know, like not only valuing education, but like embracing just like learning stuff always. I'm always seeking out knowledge. And I think that was something that I saw my dad do, just chasing little passion, you know, whether it's magic or space, like he was always super interested in space. And languages a little bit, you know, like, you know, you still know a little bit of Japanese, right?
Hi.
And you're talking about earlier seeing it to see it so you can be it. And I just can't help but just be delighted when I think about, too, you know, all children, but particularly Black children, Black little girls, to see this beautiful woman with her afro, you know, speaking perfect Mandarin, and what kind of doors and that opens in their minds. I just think it's magnificent.
I have a couple Black students, and I always tell them that people will be shocked and then delighted that you speak Mandarin. Yes. You know, both here in the States, and also I did a semester in China, and I mean, people are floored. They're just like, what? And then they're thrilled. They're so happy that you've learned this language, because they weren't expecting that of you. Yes. Which is unfortunate. Yes. But it's I really try to be that for them, to show them that this is possible for you.
Well, our daughter is she's fluent in Spanish, and so she's at an international school and been speaking since she was learning since kindergarten. And so it was interesting, even in elementary school, we all went to Spain, and she was helping us navigate through the airport, right? In this perfect Spanish. And it was interesting because it took people like a few moments to wait. Like they were buffering, like, wait a minute. Yeah. Here's this little Black girl with curly hair, and she's speaking perfect Spanish with no accent. And they kept saying, like, what is this? You know, and then they were, where did you learn? You know, so I think that's beautiful.
I love that story. You know, it's also like teaching our kids, especially our young Black kids, that they can be children of the world too.
Absolutely.
You know, that they can engage with the world. Mm-hmm. And it's such a powerful thing for them to learn at a young age, that there's more than just right here in front of you. There's this whole world that's out there that you can engage with.
Absolutely. When you think about the fact that Martin Luther King Jr.'s last book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, the very last chapter in that book is the World House. So it was incredibly important for us, for our child to understand and see the world from that global perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love, Lauren, what you said too about I want to go back to what you said about being in competition, because one of the things that we talk about a lot is that we tell our daughters that champions create and amateurs compete. You know, so like,
I'm writing that down. Hold up. Champions create and amateurs compete.
And amateurs compete.
I'm writing that down.
And in that kind of idea, your father, Larry, you have opened so many doors. It's, to me, one of the most powerful parts of your legacy is how you've used your influence to open doors for Black women in television and spaces where we've historically been shut out, creating shows like Insecure, which was a must-watch, TV on Sunday nights, and for a lot of Black women, with Issa Rae and Grownish, and it ensured that Black stories are told by the people that are living them. And then Quentin Brunson, I'm looking down because I want to make sure that I get her her words, exactly what she said, but she's the creator and star of the hugely popular, very funny series Abbott Elementary, and she credited you in her Emmy acceptance speech and for teaching her how to write great television. And then you posted, and these are your words verbatim, I was crying because Quentin Brunson won, but not ready for the shout out, and now I'm blubbering. Congrats.
I was.
What did that moment mean to you? Not just as a mentor, but as someone who's worked so hard to make sure that these voices are heard.
I really appreciate the question. I'm so flattered by it. I always took that role seriously and intentionally from the beginning. I always realized that, there's an opportunity here to do something important for us in the business. And if I can help to open doors, always my joke was, look, if I can open the door, I'll put my foot there and I'll just say, come on through. As many people can come on through while it's open. So it's been an intentional philosophy. But the first thing, I was very concerned in the 90s when I was working in television at how, number one, how Black writers were treated. They were always put into a different category, and Black shows were always thought of funny, but they didn't get respect. And I'll never forget my friend Janine Sherman, who's the top producer now. We were working on the Jamie Foxx show. She said, Larry, how come there's no like Black Seinfeld, or something like that? Meaning a show that was considered a smart Black show, not just funny, but smart, and was worthy of getting worse. And I said, well, Janine, because you haven't written it yet. And she's like, oh. And then I was like, wait a minute, I haven't written it yet either, And I remember having that moment where I thought, I have to be responsible for raising the bar. And, that term Black excellence is used now, but then I was just thinking of excellence and making sure that we were being regarded in the same ways with that type of respect. And I took that into the PJs, so my friends who worked on The Simpsons and that thought of the PJs just as worthy as that, of those types of shows. We were Emmy nominated, things like that. Bernie Mac show won Emmys, won Critics Award. So I've been very fortunate that the shows I've been on also have to be reckoned with on an artistic level and not just being funny. And at the same time, to present us on screen where I call who's controlling the narrative of us, and it's how important it is for us to control the narrative. And to me, low on that totem pole was the Black woman on television in many different ways. God bless Shonda Rhimes, for helping that too. But I realized when I met Issa that premium television, I'm always looking to put something on TV that's not there before, So like Bernie Mac show, that wasn't on there before for a Black show to be that style, someone breaking the fourth wall. I kind of use French New Wave as inspiration for how I did that. Insecure is a little different. I'm like, no one's telling the stories of Black women as full-grown women, who have agency, and what's their story in the world? What's the Black girls? That type of thing. So it was important for me. It wasn't just trying to do a show. It was important for me having those conversations with Issa and really focusing on that character and how important it was for that character to be on HBO, not just on the networks, but on HBO, premium cable. So being in certain spaces are the things I've targeted too. Not just getting on TV, but being in a premium space and getting the certain type of attention, getting certain types of awards. And when I was developing with Quinta, I first found Quinta. She was on the nightly show when I was doing that show, and I discovered she was brilliant. And so I brought her into the network when I was over at Disney to develop with her. And they were like, who is this? Quinta, what's her name? And we sold the show to CBS with her and Jermaine Fowler. And she remembers I really was trying to impart on her how important voice was. I said, I knew Quinta would get the skill of writing very easily, but for me, the lesson was about voice. How do you get your voice on that page and sticking up for things? And our show didn't go, but I gave her the freedom to put the character on the page that she felt passionately about. And that was the lesson there, because what are you representing at the end of the day when you're on that screen? I still remember the show Julia with Diane Carroll, Marco Page, this woman on screen representing something I hadn't seen on TV before. This Black woman, she was a single woman. She was smart, she was intelligent. She had to be reckoned with as a character you could not dismiss easily, and that meant something to me at that time. So
Julia inspired my mom. My mom was the first Black nurse in her small town in Live Oak, Florida, Suwannee County, Florida. And it was seeing Julia on TV. Seeing her, seeing that she was a nurse and how she, obviously Diane Carroll was beautiful, but so how that impacted her and inspired her and, opened doors for, for my family, to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren, your dad has accomplished so much in his career, but what makes you the most proud, not just for those accomplishments, but who he is as a human being?
Yeah, one thing is what we were just talking about, that the way he has brought people with him, and particularly Black women. I'm always trying to tell people this because I feel like, because you're so humble, Dad, that people don't really know that necessarily if they're not like really researching who was it that got that person in that room. because it's such a behind the scenes thing. But that's something that I've always been very proud of. And just that you've always kind of stayed true to yourself. It's been kind of an interesting journey because Dad has been, doing show business since before I was born, but he became more in front of the camera when I was in about high school. And that's when people started being able to just recognize him on the street. And that was kind of a different vibe from my childhood. But even with that, I feel like you just haven't changed as a person or anything, you're still putting the work first and putting other people first. It's not all about me, which I think happens to a lot of people in show business. So I think that's something else that I'm very proud of.
And I love that description because, Larry, I think it hasn't been about you. You've actually used your characters to almost hold a mirror to society, to challenge, to question. I look at the description that you've had of the very deep divide in America right now between America and America. And America.
Okay.
Wait, one more time.
My breath. You did really good.
I still don't know what this
No, but Larry,
you.
okay. But we need the. Okay, can you explain though a little bit? No, but sincerely, what the difference is.
I love
and
America. I love the promise of America. I think America is the light on the hill. America, on the other hand, has a lot of issues. America is where division comes. It's where hatred comes. It's where we're separated. It's where we don't come together. It's where people get in bubbles. It's where they divide and all those things. But America is the thing that we should always be shooting for, that perfection of an idea that unites people, that isn't tribal. It is about freedom of expression, all these things, freedom of speech, the ability to be a unique person in the world and not be threatened by government has never happened before, But America tends to threaten those things in different ways, And so I did a show early this year where I made that distinction through a show where I did both political commentary and magic tricks, which a lot of people didn't know that I did magic. So
we all have been friends for years, the four of us here, but we recently wrote a book where we talked a lot about the disconnection. We talked about the solution being the beloved community, but the disconnection, frankly, in America and around the world. So when you look at that division, do you have hope, or what gives you hope?
Well, I'm a hopeful person, but I'm a realist too. Look, I was very influenced by, Dr. King. I mean, here's a man that understood that division. He relied on America to get us out of the worst instincts of America. It's people don't realize, they don't appreciate today how revolutionary not a nonviolent approach actually is, because we allow oppressed people to fight back everywhere in the world. Why was it not allowed here? What's the difference? Why? We expect it everywhere in the world. Why did we not expect it here? So there was a bigger idea that he was working at. And that idea was the promise of something that people actually had an agreement upon. It just hadn't been cashed in yet. As your dad said, the promissory note is the way that he put it, And that is inspirational and it's aspirational. It's different. It's a different thing when you're doing that. And that's how you bring people into something as opposed to you get something, You want to bring people together. You're not just trying to get something. Whenever I talk about, when I'm talking to young people about showbiz, I say, look, here's the best advice I can give you. When you're in the business, but you could use this in any business, don't look at it as something you could get something out of. Look at it as something you could put something into. What's the contribution you can make that is a unique contribution? Because you can't lose with that. You're going to lose eventually when you're trying to get something out of something. Maybe I can get this, or maybe I can extract this. Don't extract, make a deposit. What's the thing of value that I'm putting into this, the contribution? And that's what your dad did.
One of the things that is interesting that you talked about oppressed people, because one of the things that he said was the greatness of America is the right to protest
for rights.
For rights. So that was foundational to all of his work and why he did what he did. And right now though, we're seeing an all-out attack really on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's hard not to think about your role as Mr. Brown the diversity educator on The Office. A character who was trying to cut through both the workplace absurdity and the uncomfortable, unspoken realities of racial bias. You did a brilliant job, I think, bringing that into the conversation. But looking at where we are today, 20 years from that role, are we any farther ahead? Or does it feel like we're falling farther behind?
It's always a difficult question to ask. In some aspects, you always are. In some aspects, you have to keep your eye on it. There's, many times we have to separate something that feels like a program or a prescription for something versus what's happening in the culture, and keeping your eye on the culture. What's a political movement, but what's a cultural movement? What's a political change? What's a cultural change?
What's the difference?
The culture actually is moving forward, but there's been a political change where it's trying to be a check on that culture moving forward. And so we're at an inflection point right now, and that's why it feels very intense, But it's rare that culture goes backwards. It's very rare. Sometimes it goes forward in a way that isn't necessarily good, but it's still kind of moving forward. So it's up to us to steer that and be stewards and be mindful of the ways in which it is tumbling forward, because bad actors are always all around for, things that are self-serving that, we have to be a check on. So, and so when I look at DEI, to me, I'm not concerned about DEI. I'm more concerned about freedom and that sort of thing. If we're going to use letters, give me the F. That big F is a bigger concern of mine. Somebody wanted me to answer some questions about BIPOC, and I said, look, guys, I'm only concerned about the B right now. You guys can be concerned about the IPOC, okay? I got enough issues trying to work with the B at this point. So if we're going to separate letters, I don't get too concerned in the micro. I'm more concerned about the macro, and fighting those fights, if that answers the question.
So it's already been established, Lauren, that we're going to get you and our daughter together so that you can talk to her about many of things.
Yes, please.
But until that happens, I want to ask you a question on behalf of her, who, again, she's 16 years old, Yolanda. If you could go back to your 16-year-old self, what is the one thing that you would tell her?
Wow. Because I'm, for reference, I am 26, so for me this is 10 years ago.
Oh, that decade.
Yeah, I thought of that for a second. I'm like, wow, that's a full decade ago for me. I think a big thing is to be patient and to know that things happen when they happen. And if it, what is meant for you will not pass you by. Like if it doesn't happen, then that means that wasn't your opportunity, and to not think that you can control the timing of things. Like I was college class of 2020. I was going to stay in New York and do theater, and then the world shut down and I had to pivot. And that's when I went and got my master's, because literally all of theater had shut down and would be shut down for who knew how long. And I had such a plan, like to the minute of how my life was going to look. And March 2020 just completely changed everything. And so just knowing that there's so much that's outside of your control, but that things will happen if you just take little steps every day towards your dreams and your goals, whatever that may be. It will happen for you. So don't freak out. Don't stress. Just like keep taking those baby steps and trust the timing, and that your timing is different than other people's timing. Coming back to that whole comparison, competition thing.
Yes.
It's so tempting, especially with social media. Oh yeah, I didn't even get started on the stay off social media, but especially with social media, it's so hard to see other people's timing and not feel like, oh, I should be doing that. Oh, they're on Broadway already. But it's like, yeah, because that's their journey. Like, this is my journey and this is your journey, Yolanda. And, like just knowing that things will happen when they're supposed to happen. And it may not be like you envisioned, and that's okay.
I often think of it like being in a car and putting on your GPS or Waze. And, you know, when I'm driving with my husband, he argue with Waze. I don't know if anyone else does. I'm like,
love that.
Yeah, I'm like, just don't put it on if you're going to argue with her.
No,
like,
that's me.
Yeah, like,
That's
turn
how
it
I am.
this way. And he literally is like arguing out loud with Waze. But I think of life sometimes.
I can relate.
Yeah. I think of
I
life
got you.
sometimes as like, you know, having that Waze or GPS. So once, you know, you put your goals and if you're working towards reaching them, even if you make a turn to the left, you know, what happens? It recalculates itself.
That's right.
You know, so even so that it will continue, and then so therefore, and you will ultimately, as long as you're, you know, you have your vision and you work hard and you believe no matter what, you will get there. And even if it unfolds, and even if you quote unquote take a wrong turn, you can't take that wrong turn from destiny when you truly are focused on something bigger and greater than yourself.
Arndrea,
Well
that was
said.
on fire. That was amazing. I love that. I will never look at Waze the same way again, or Google Maps. Or not.
And Martin, when you argue with Waze, do they argue back or?
Sometimes.
I know. I want to hear that argument. I just shake my head and I go, nope, not happening today.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
I'm
what
going
he
this
got.
way.
Like, yeah, and I'm gonna go this way. And then
I'm going to say, though, if Larry, we hear that work its way into a script, we know it came from here, from this podcast.
Exactly right. And it will, believe me. It will at this point.
There better be a writing
Lauren
credit.
knows everything shows up.
Everything
Lauren
shows
knows
up.
everything.
I love a
Table
writing
scraps.
credit, Martin Luther King III.
That's right.
The argument.
We're joking, but it is true, guys.
well, what would be funny if when we see that come up, that very few people will know that's Martin Luther King III. That character that's arguing with Waze.
I'm sure there are hundreds, thousands, millions of people who are not the only one.
Right?
Well, one of the unexpected pleasures of this conversation, Lauren, I meant that when I said, and I say this with respect, Larry, because I'm a dad. She stole the show. Like, that's the highest praise I can give to a dad. What are you most proud of?
Well, I can't take credit for all of it. Her mom is an amazing mom, and you know, I always say Lauren gets 90% of her talent from her mom. She gets the jokes from me. But her mom, her values, and her family too. You know, this was a group effort. You know, with both of the kids, and I've always said my joke term for kids are blessed inconvenience. Like, that's my joke term.
Oh,
But-
really?
Yeah, but the first word is very important. You know, I've always viewed Jon and Lauren as a blessing. You know, most important thing that's happened in my life and ever will is them. You know, and as I told Lauren, I am proud of her every day of her life. But they're inspirations to me. You know, and I'm happy that I am to them. But they're inspirations to me too. I learn from them all the time. You know, and it's fun to see both of them out in the world doing their thing. You know, and doing what they're doing. I've always loved seeing people's reaction to Lauren too. Lauren has such a light about her. She's very inspirational. I don't know if she knows that either, but especially to young kids. I mean, I remember she did a Peter Pan once when she was Tinkerbell, and oh my God, she was like one of the Beatles, you know, like the kids who were flocking around her, you know, but just drawn to her in a way. And she has a lot of power in just being still and being herself, you know. So I'm very proud of her.
Thank you.
Well, Larry and Lauren, we're grateful for your honesty, your humor, your heart you brought to this conversation. I love the multi-generational nature of it. You've talked to us about legacy, family, representation, and the power of impact, especially opening doors and sticking your foot in so people can follow thereafter.
And Craig, we even had some songs today.
Oh my God, yes. Jokes, laughter.
I was not ready for that. But it's great.
I love it. I love it. Hopefully we won't be sued for that copyright infringement. But I love it.
It was in the other languages, so they're not going to be worried
Well
about
said.
it.
I love it. I love it. But we typically end the show by inviting people to live their own legacy. And they do it through fulfillment. They do it through taking ideas that came to them from this conversation. And I really want to emphasize it for the parents out there who are listening this time. Because a few things, Larry, really struck me. One, tell your kids, I'm proud of you every day.
Mm-hmm.
What a beautiful message, Lauren, that you shared, that your father voiced that. You know, I try to tell my kids every day I love them. And just to create that ritual, that routine is so powerful. Invite our listeners to reflect that you don't have to be the best. You have to be your best. I hope every parent says that to their kids, like how powerful that is. And lastly, making someone laugh, even in times of difficulty. Larry, I love the reflection about how when your parents were going through their divorce and you and your brother just finding laughter to cheer each other up. There's a lot of people out now who are going through tough times in America and around the world. And to share a little bit of laughter, share a clip from this podcast, to share a clip from their favorite TV show that you helped create, to share a clip to bring a little bit of joy in the world. So Larry and Lauren, thank you for sharing all of this with us and for living your legacy every day.
You guys are so lovely. Thank you so much. What a nice tribute and everything. It's such a great podcast. Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
Yes.
You all are
100%.
beautiful. And again, and thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for all that you've done to open doors. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed today's conversation, subscribe, share, and follow us at My Legacy Movement on social media. New episodes drop every Tuesday. At its core, this podcast honors Dr. King's vision of the beloved community and the power of connection. Until next week, may you find inspiration to live your legacy.